Venus. Look at him. In all of the videos, huh? Hello, and every time I talk while holding Venus, he hates it. Hi, welcome to my channel. Today, we're doing the November wrap up. In November, I went through kind of a lot of books for me. 8 books, one of which I started months before, but I finished it in November, so I'm gonna talk about it here. Want to start with the first one I read this month, which is at the bottom. Here it is. This is my book of the month pick, and I honestly wasn't that interested in the book of the months this month for November, but I always feel the need to get one. But this one actually turned out to be a great pick. It's called The Keeper of the Night by Kylie Lee Baker. It is a young adult book, which typically I'm like not that into, but this one, like, it could be for old adults, young adults, mid-age adults. Like, it didn't feel like a young adult like writing style, I guess. It was very good. So basically it's about this Shinigami, which is like a reaper, but in like Japanese folklore. And she is half Shinigami, half reaper, like a British Grim Reaper. That's her. So she basically, in like the first chapter, runs away from her home in Britain with her brother to escape to Japan. It follows their journey to get there. And then once they're there, they go locate the underworld of Japan to see if she has a role there, fits in there, because she didn't really fit in at home because of her Japanese heritage, and now she's not really fitting in there because of her British heritage. It was such a fun read because basically in order to become a Shinigami, she had to battle a bunch of different like monsters from the Japanese underworld. So you got to learn a bunch about these different Japanese folklore characters that I never would have known about if I hadn't read this. And it leaves off on a big cliffhanger, but that's because there's a second book. I finished it very quickly because it was so good, I couldn't stop. So I make reading journal spreads for all the books that I read. It's fun. So here's my spread for The Keeper of the Night. Cute. And it also helps me keep up on my thoughts on the book because I feel like after I finish a book, they just like slowly fade away. So this keeps it in check. I rated this 4.5 out of 5. 4.5 out of 5 is really, really good for me for a fantasy book because I don't like fantasy. I don't really read fantasy all that often. So, and I said that. I said I don't usually like fantasy, but I loved this. The adventures were so fun, and the incorporation of Japanese myth was interesting. Okay, the next book we have is a middle grade book. It's called The Girl Who Drank the Moon by Kelly Barnhill. And this is how I learned that I can't read middle grade. This book was so boring for me. I had to switch to audiobook halfway through because I just couldn't get through it. I think that was partially because it's fantasy. It's about, you've probably heard this. It was big on BookTube, so that's why I bought it. And it's cute. It's like, the cover is so cute. But anyways, it's a book about this girl who gets like banished to the woods and as like a sacrifice for this witch that's taking the children, but there's not actually a witch, it's just the town trying to have control over the people. And she survives, and you kind of just like go through her life and her journey, and it deals a lot with death and grief and family and found family and a lot of really great lessons for kids. So I think this would be an amazing book if I was a child, if I was in middle school or elementary school. I think this would be great. I would not be able to put it down. But I feel like I just can't suspend disbelief enough now. It just lulled for way too long. And things were explained like a million times, which I get it because it's for children. So really would be, I think, a fantastic book if I was in middle school, but I'm not. So that was my mistake. I will not be reading middle grade books anymore until I have children, and then I can say, take this book, tell me if it's good, because I look insane in this video because of the giant ring light. It's fine. We're just talking about books. This is kind of a cute spread. There it is. I rated it a 3.5, but I feel like I can't really judge this book since I'm not in middle school. So really don't take my word for it. I think it would be a great book for kids. It was cute to read in November. I feel like it kind of gave that end of fall, beginning of winter vibes. Thought I heard a ghost. The next book is actually a short story and novella. I don't really know much about how J.D. Salinger is problematic, but I know that he was. Maybe a character in a movie liked this book, and so I wanted to be like that character. I can't remember why I bought this, but it was a very long time ago, and I've just had it lying around until I decided to pick it up this month, and oh my gosh, I loved it. I loved it. So this is Franny and Zoe. Did I say that? I don't know. I remember I read Catcher in the Rye in high school, and I didn't think anything of it. It didn't stick with me. Wasn't a big fan of it. The first story is Franny's, and it's her coming to visit her boyfriend, but she is going through it. She has discovered this religious text that is making her just like reevaluate her entire existence and what she does. She's like a theater major, and she's like, all of these actors are egotistical and they make me want to throw up, and I'm so angry all the time. Me too, girly. Relatable already. Also afterwards, I looked up J.D. Salinger, like what his religion is, and apparently he like would switch religions like every year. Like how you change out your fall wardrobe every year, he would do that with religions. So that makes a lot of sense for this book, because it's very much like discovering a new religion and having that like take over your whole sense of how to act and be. That's how I interpreted it. And then, oh, my cat's playing. And then the second half is the novella Zoe, which is Franny's brother, and he basically is at home right now. My cat is destroying a toy, so sorry that it shifted this. But he's at home right now. He's a like working actor, and Franny is at home because she's having a mental breakdown and losing her mind. And so the second half is basically like showing Zoe's personality, which he's so funny. I really liked him. And I really liked Franny. And like how they interact with their mother, and then him kind of like putting Franny's life back together, basically, is how I would describe it. But this book had so many good quotes. Like, I didn't even write down really what the summary of it was or what my thoughts were. This whole page is just like quotes that spoke to me. Okay, like this. The mob of ignorant oafs with diplomas that are turned loose on the country every June. Like, just how that is phrased is so good. I knew what a bore I was being, how I was depressing people, but I couldn't stop. We've talked and talked and talked, but we've all agreed not to say a word. I'm sick of not having the courage to be an absolute nobody. Just so many good quotes. Okay, next we'll do a classic, because I, quote, read 2 classics this month. One I read all the way through, which I'll talk about soon. The other one I finished up, which was Emma by Jane Austen. Queen. I started this book embarrassingly a very long time ago. And I started it and stopped it and started it and stopped it. And then I got into this like reading routine that I'm in right now, where my attention span was long enough to actually consume and enjoy and understand a piece of classical literature. So that's what happened with this. And it quickly became my favorite classical book I've ever read. I love Emma. I love her so much. I see so much of myself in her. Basically, the plot of this is Clueless. Clueless is like an adaptation of this, and it's done so well. Like, after you read this, go watch Clueless back again and you'll pick up on like the smallest scenes that they've added to allude to this. Definitely one of, so yeah, super good. It was funny, like I actually laughed out loud at some parts of this, which is just insane. But now that I have read 2 books of Jane Austen's, then she's a funny gal, and it comes out in her writing, and I think we would have been best friends. I really like her. She's very cool. Let me show you my spread for this. So I just redid the cover umbrella thing. And do I have any quotes? So feminist queen, Emma, I think Emma said this, I can't remember. I always deserve the best treatment because I never put up with any other. Oh, so good. Just, it's also pretty accessible once you kind of get into it. Like, it definitely, you have to have a good attention span for any classical book, I think. But I think compared to some pieces of classical literature, like, it's pretty easy. It has a manageable cast of characters, which I think is the main thing that makes classics hard to read, is like how Russian literature has 1,000,001 characters. This one has a succinct cast of characters that reappear, so you can keep track of that, which I think is very important. So good. Next, we're gonna talk Should we do that one next? No, let's go in order. Okay, next I read November 9 by Colleen Hoover. This was my first Colleen Hoover book. I started it on November 9, along with every other girl out there. And it was a great experience. I have never read Colleen Hoover, and now I want to read everything. It was a romance book, but it wasn't like a rom-com romance book. It was way deeper than that. If you don't know what this is about, it's about a girl and a guy who meet on November 9, and then they continue to see each other each November 9, but they don't talk in between that. So it's really just like 5 or 6 years that they've met up, but they don't communicate in between. So it's a very interesting dynamic. It's very much insta love, which I know a lot of people hate. I kind of like it because I feel like I'd rather have that than like all romance books in some way are kind of insta love, I feel like. So just go out and say it, you know? Don't hide behind like forming a friendship and then discovering your love. Like, just, you knew it all along. Don't try to hide it. I don't know if that made any sense, but it was so good. I didn't cry, which I usually cry at books like this, so I don't know if that's like a bad sign, but it's very good. I think the story will stick with me. It had layers upon layers. This is a chaotic, last minute put together video, but how cute is that? Anyway, I think I will probably rate this 4 stars because I really did enjoy it. Is it my favorite romance book from this year? No, but I really liked it, so would highly recommend. Next, we have a controversial one. The Atlas 6. If you are on Book Talk or BookTube or any social media, you know about this book. Everybody was raving about it. It's a independently published fantasy book that people were going crazy for. So I had to read it, of course. I didn't like it. I didn't. For one, this is like a duology or something. I think she's gonna come out with one more book, which I'm like, this easily could have been a standalone book. Like, I think it just droned on in parts for me. I got very bored and wanted to just rush through it. I also, just certain characters I didn't care about as much, which made it hard to read because each chapter is like a different character's point of view. So with the characters that I didn't really care about, I was like, all right, let's move on. Let's get back to Libby. I really liked Libby, she's like the main character, but also the one that like everybody hates the most, but she has bangs, so love you, girl. It wasn't awful, but it wasn't great. I think people were just hyping it up so much that actually reading it upset me because I was expecting so much more. But again, if I've learned anything this month, it's that I am not good with fantasy. I cannot read it. I don't enjoy it. This is very fantasy, and I just can't suspend disbelief. Or yeah, I don't know. And just like real life situations are just so much more interesting to me. I don't know. Just, I'd die for some historical fiction books that other people would be like, this is very boring. And then for fantasy, people are like, I would die for this, and I would, I'm like, this is boring. So that's just something I learned about myself. So I'll probably give this like a 3 out of 5 because it's nicely, I was gonna say it's nicely written, but I honestly don't really like how it's written. I think she kind of gets too trapped in these ideas and repeats and like dissects the ideas that she's trying to say, but never actually comes to like an end conclusion a lot of the times with these big ideas that she's trying to explain. And they go on for like 5 pages and you're like, okay, I get it. I get it. They're trying to move this thing with their mind. Like, you don't have to explain it that hard. So I think this book could have been like 100 pages shorter. It's almost 400 pages. Easily could have been shorter. I know she's getting it published now through an actual publishing house. And so I'm kind of tempted to read it again once like she's had an editor. I'm sure she's had an editor for this. I don't know. I just want to see what the publishing house does with this. I hope it'll be shorter. Ugh. I didn't even explain what this is, but I feel like there's enough information out there on it. It did have pictures in it, like of all the characters, which was very fun. But that was about it. Next one is another Jane Austen. This is the one that I fully read this month, Northanger Abbey. And I am having a full separate reading vlog for it because now I want to read all of Jane Austen's works. So I was like, why not make a vlog about each one of them. So if you want to know my thoughts on this, go see that video. I'm probably gonna post it after this one, but stay tuned. I really liked this though, but I have some thoughts. But really liked it. Not as much as Emma, of course, but very good. Also like very accessible. Emma, oh, this is interesting. So Emma was her last novel that she wrote, and this was her first. And reading the two like back to back, you can totally tell like her writing has evolved so much since this. But it still is really good, and I think it's even easier of a step into classics. And the last book, I feel like I have shown this a couple times just putting it up. I have never read this until now. Good old Big Little Lies by Leanne Moriarty. And it basically follows these like suburban moms and all of their drama. And basically at the beginning of the book, it tells you that a parent has been murdered, but they don't know how, but it happened at like a PTA event sort of thing, at a trivia night. And so the rest of the book is, it starts like 6 months like before the event, and it just works its way up to there. And in between there's little like blurbs from the detective and the interviews that they're doing, kind of like a chorus that happen at the end of each chapter where somebody's like giving a little bit more information, but it's really just to throw you off even more so that you get more confused until it reveals itself. I did slightly predict the ending. I feel like it's hard not to, because you read like 400 pages, 450 pages in, and then it happens. So I feel like by then you kind of sift through all of your theories and eventually land on the actual one. But just the fact that I read this book in like 2 days means it's a good book, because it's like 500 pages and I could not stop reading it. Okay, so those were the 8 books that I read for November. It was a very successful reading month. I feel like I had a lot of wins that could be one of my top like 10 books from this year, but then also a lot of losers that could be like my bottom 10 books from this year. So a good mix. Also a good mix of new genres that I don't really delve into, like fantasy. And I think it's important to expand to different genres, even if you're pretty sure you're gonna hate it, and you do. Thank you for watching, and if you liked this video, then subscribe to my channel and give it a like, and that would make me very happy. So yeah, thank you for watching, and I'll be back soon with another video, probably reviewing Northanger Abbey. Okay, bye.